It's time now to take a look at perfect timing. We spoke earlier with best-selling author Daniel Pink. His new book is out in early January. It's called When: The Scientific Secrets of Perfect Timing. You say this is not a how-to book, but a when-to book. Tell people what that means.
Well, we tend to think that timing is an art. We make our decisions about when to do things based on gut instinct and intuition, but timing is actually a science. Across multiple disciplines, there's a huge body of research showing us how to make systematically better, evidence-based decisions about when to do things. And it turns out they have a material effect on our well-being, on our productivity, on our performance, on our creativity, on our health, many, many domains of life.
What I love is also the way in which it's not just, are you a morning person or an evening person, although you have a great explanation and description and a little test on how you can figure out who you are in that group, but it's also when you choose to do certain kinds of thinking, like creative thinking versus, explain that for people.
Absolutely. Well, what a whole range of scientists have found is that the day has a hidden pattern. It's basically a peak, a trough, and a rebound. Now, most of us proceed through the day in that order: peak, trough, rebound. And it turns out we're better off doing analytic work during the peak, which for most of us is the morning. The trough is not good for anything. It's actually a danger zone in many ways. We're better off doing our administrative stuff during the trough. But then during the recovery, it turns out we're better at more creative tasks, tasks that require a little bit more looseness rather than that heads down, locked in approach.
And is that's when the flashes of insight come?
Often, because when we're at our peak, we're very vigilant, right? We're able to keep out distractions. That's a feature when you're doing the analytic work. But when you're doing creative work, you actually want a little bit more looseness. You want to let a few distractions in to mix up the soup a little bit. And so during the recovery period, which again for most of us is the late afternoon, early evening, we do better on what are called insight tasks.
Has human history fouled us up by, which is to say, we needed to create time and have watches and hours so we would know when the bus arrives.
Yeah.
But did we figure out a system that's basically always fighting with our own natural rhythms?
It's a really, really interesting question because one of the things what I discovered researching time itself is that a lot of things that we think of as natural are completely human inventions designed to corral time. So an hour has no natural substance to it. A minute doesn't have any natural substance to it. Certainly a year does because the planet goes around. A day does because the planet spins on its axis. But beyond that, we're always trying to corral time. And it's very hard to do, and time is a very elusive subject. And one of the things that's happened is that I think as a consequence, when we think about our own performance, we focus on what we're going to do. We focus on often how we're going to do it. We're focused on who we're going to do it with. But we put when questions over there at the kids' table saying that it's not that important. And the science is telling us that it's actually demonstrably important.
Right. It's the thing you should put at the front. One of the things I love about the book is there's a lot of practical news you can use, as we
Absolutely.
say. So give people a little sense of that, both in your day-to-day, but also, you talk, for example, about midlife and the guidance that. So give us a sense of those how-to.
There are all kinds of things. Number one is that if you think about the science of breaks. Not too many years ago, people who stayed up all night were kind of heroes in the workplace because they were tougher than the rest of us. Then the science of sleep began emerging, and we said, no, those people are fools. I think the science of breaks is where the science of sleep was a decade ago, about to break through the surface as a really, really instructive about how we can work better. So we need to take more breaks, period. And one of the best things that I've done myself is that every day I have a break list. I write down 2 breaks I'm going to take during the day. We also know from the science that breaks are better taken with other people rather than solo, even for introverts like me. They're better taken fully detached rather than semi-detached. That is, don't bring your phone. We're better off moving during our breaks than being stationary. We're also better off being near nature. And so what the science is telling us is that if we take these regular breaks, 10, 15 minutes, we're going to feel better, we're going to perform higher. So make a break list. That's one of my favorite tips.
And go outside while you're taking a break.
If you can. But there's even evidence that just looking out a window and seeing a tree is better than being in a windowless room.
Let me also ask you about teams, and because how timing works when you're working with lots of other people as well.
Yeah, well, there's some really, really interesting research on how teams synchronize, things like choirs, rowing teams, delivery services. And one of the things that it's so interesting about our nature is that it seems that coordinating with other people, being in sync and in time with other people, There's something fundamentally human about that, and we have a propensity for it. And one of the things that's so interesting about that, if you look at, let's take exercise as an example. Exercise is absolutely good for you, right? It boosts your mood. It's a prophylactic against depression. It helps control your weight. It's all good. Well, there's kind of a new exercise out there, and it's choral singing of all things. Choral singing has benefits that are just extraordinary at the physiological level and the psychological level. It is useful for cancer patients. It improves your immune response. It boosts your mood. So there's something about synchronizing with other people that makes us feel good. It also helps when kids do synchronous activities. They actually afterwards are a little bit more what social psychologists call pro-social. That is, they will play with kids who aren't like them. They're more likely to cooperate. They're more likely to help.
So we all should join roving bands of walking singers.
Well, on our breaks, yes.
Right, exactly.
Well, I mean, I think there's some good evidence for, like in schools, that choral groups, not only as kind of an ancillary activity, but as something that actually boosts the moods of kids, improves their social and emotional learning, and could conceivably make them better citizens of the school.
All right, Daniel Pink, that's it. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, John.
Daniel Pink's book is When: The Scientific Secrets of Perfect Timing. We'll be back in a moment.